Hey guys, welcome back. Getting a little late. I'm getting a little tired. Oh, knocking shit over as you can tell, which is never a good thing to do. But want to do what I think might be a fun little. It's not technically a list video, I guess, but just a video. Some fragrances that I was sitting around thinking the other day, as I tend to do. I was looking at some of my fragrances and thought, geez, there was like fragrances that were out when I was a kid. And it just got me thinking about fragrances when I was a kid, and some that became, at least to me anyway, became popular later on. Do you know what I mean? So basically, this is fragrances that came out in the 80's that kind of peaked in the 90's a couple years later. And that happens a lot with a lot of fashion in general, whether it be makeup, fragrances, clothing, shoes. At least back then. Nowadays, not so much because of the internet. You have instant access to everything. Markets are different. You know, generally most places get everything around the same time now. Whereas before here, especially where I lived in Canada, this part of Canada, you didn't get stuff sometimes a couple years after it been released, just south of us in the States, not too far, 9 hours away in New York, right? So, so it might be a little different now if you've just really only been the last 20 years you've been into fragrances. You might think this is, everything that comes out is pretty much popular right away. It wasn't that way in the 80's and the 90's. Your only form of really knowing about anything other than going in and smelling them were TV ads if you had some, and most of the TV ads weren't for, a lot of these fragrances. They're more just for aftershaves and stuff, the cheaper stuff, believe it or not. And magazines, you got a lot of magazine ads, and you remember the magazines. You older fellas will know. You younger fellas, go talk amongst yourself, play some Fortnite or something for a second. Remember when you get a magazine and you'd open it up and you'd have 4 or 5 different fragrances there, usually like 3 or 4 women's and 1's men, but you could like peel it off and smell it, close it back up, and if you're really, really, really poor, sometimes you'd rub it on yourself. With a piece of paper, you'd tear it out of the doctor's office, wherever we were, tear it off yourself, or sometimes right in the bookstore when the clerk wasn't looking, you slowly rip it and put the book back. Shh, don't tell anybody. Yeah, I was poor and I want to smell good. Sorry. But anyway, yeah, okay, young fellas, you can come back. So you old fellas, you remember that. And so that's kind of why things didn't, really become super popular. It took usually a year or 2, sometimes 3 or 4 to really catch on around here anyway. Again, bigger cities might be a totally, New York, LA, Toronto, Vancouver, places like that. Maybe it was different, maybe. But here in this little medium-sized city that I live in on the East Coast, took a while. Basically, that's what I'm saying. Took a while for stuff to get here, and then took an even longer time for it to catch on here. Until the advent of the internet, really 98, 99, when the internet really took off and you could really start getting reviews and everything, and so at your fingertips. So anyway, let's get into it. Long-winded way of just starting the video like usual. That's me. I'm sorry. So yeah, these are fragrances that were made in the 80's, peaked in the 90's. Most of them came out in the late 80's. Like I just said, decades don't stop though. It's like, this was made in 89. This is an 80's fragrance. Technically, yes, but more than likely it's going to be a 90's fragrance. Even if it was made in 88, 89, even 87-ish. It's going to be more of a 90's. People will remember more in the 90's way than an 80's way. But technically it'd be an 80's fragrance, right? Some of the bottles I don't have. They're packed away. I said I'm going to do these videos anyway because I want to try to get back to doing some videos. I feel like I've been, like I said, neglecting it a little and down in the dumps because I go to do something and I don't have my bottles. But I do own them. The bottles are just packed away. So let's start out with an obvious one, Cool Water. Everybody said, it's 80 cents, 80 cents. It came out in 88, late 88 if I remember right. So for me, again, around here, it didn't peak till 93, 94 when Snoop Dogg made that song. Remember what's it called? Loki Doki Yoki or something. I can't remember. Loogie Oogie. I got the Johnson Baby Powder and Cool Water Cologne. You know, that's when it peaked. It was like, oh, what's this Cool Water Cologne? I remember thinking, a lot of guys and girls thinking, what's this Cool Water Cologne he's talking about? And I remember once that song came out, that album came out, like a month later, everybody had Cool Water around me, myself included. Well, I had a dupe because I couldn't afford it, but you know, I bet a lot of them had dupes too. But you know, Belcam, good dupe, especially at the time for the price. But anyway, yeah, Cool Water. You know, it's got notes of seawater, lavender, mint, cologne, musk. It's fresh, green, aromatic, aquatic fragrance. Lots of lavender and cologne in it. It's just a nice fragrance, guys. And this is going to be big reviews. That's kind of what you're going to get from this video because I don't want to take forever. Next, I have a bottle of, and that's Dior Fahrenheit. Again, 1988. So I didn't hear about this till, again, 93, 94, somewhere around there, 95-ish. When I first smelled it on a friend who was a couple years older than me, was good with the ladies, and he was going out to hang out with his girl at the time at a different school, and he put on a new fresh shirt and sprayed on a couple sprays of this from his locker, and I instantly fell in love with it. I thought it was the greatest thing I ever smelled. Still love it. Will say it might be a little hard to wear today for younger people's taste, but modern taste, I guess. But I still love this stuff. Oh my God, it's still gorgeous. You know, some of the notes: leather, violet leaf, nutmeg, lavender, woods. Woods, leather, spices. Very, very unique florals, especially by today's standards. It's a love-or-hated scent. I get that by, again, modern standards, but most people 35 and up know this, love this. Not all, but most. That gasoline vibe, and it's not really like you poured gasoline or petrol on yourself. It's just, I think it's the closest that people can come up with, but it's not a one-for-one by any stretch of the word. It's the love it or hate it part about it. I love it. Very masculine. Like I said, leather wood aromatic fragrance. Great fragrance. Great fragrance. Next is another one I don't have. I haven't had in a long, long time. I think my friend stole the bottle. I've talked about it before, I think. And that's Colors Man by Bennington. Came out in 88, and around 91, 92, 93 or somewhere around there, when I really started wearing colognes, more to wear colognes. This was one of the first. Lemon, lavender, carnation, cypress. I don't remember much about it, but what I do remember, it was a fresh, green, sharp, kind of citrus lavender, woody scent with a hint of that old school barbershop vibe, without being barbershoppy. And could be 100% wrong. Like I said, it's been, Christ, 30 years. And could be 100% wrong, but man, I remember for a year or two in the early 90s, it was the go-to fragrance. Everybody around here knew about it. Everybody had to have it. And then it just disappeared. That was the funny thing. It was the shit for 2 or 3 years, and then it was just gone. Like, I don't remember being in stores anymore. Nobody wearing it. Nobody talking about it. Yeah, and that could be because of a few fragrances I'm going to mention that came out in the 90s that might have changed the way people felt about this kind of stuff. Because that did have a bit of, I remember it, a bit of an old throwback kind of barbershoppy feel to it. So, so next one, believe it or not, is going to be Obsession. Now, this is a bit of a misnomer because I think this was popular almost as soon as it came out with most people because it was Calvin Klein. And even me at 10 years old, no, geez, I wasn't even 10 yet. Me at 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, I knew what Calvin Klein was. So this might have been popular right away. But 86, And it was probably popular in the late 80s. And it was definitely popular when I was in high school in the 90s. You know, early to mid 90s type deal. Uh, I don't think it smells old. Some people think it smells old manish. I really don't. It's got a nice leather and patchouli and vanilla and spice and woods. Classic, yes. Masculine, yes. Old manish, I really don't think so, but it's personal preference. And I also think this got a bit of a boost in the 90s. From the release of Escape in 93 and Eternity, I believe was 1990. Which I have a bottle of both of them. Just one second. I do have a bottle of both of them. Still, I didn't pack them away. Which brings me to a nice transition to fragrances I thought were released in the late 80s, but actually came out in the 90s. But if you had held a gun to my head before I researched Google this little video, I would have swore they came out in the late 80s, honestly. And that's Escape, which came out in 93, which really blew my mind. Because I can remember being, 10 years old, which would have been, 88, 89, and I thought this was out. But no, it never came out till like 93. Funny how memory works, right? And Eternity, which I would have bet the farm came out in I thought 86 for some reason. But according to Google and Fragrantica, it came out in 1990. My little bottle of Eternity. I am going to get a bigger bottle just to have. But, yeah, little bottle of Eternity. Little dingy bottle. Love them both. Yeah, fresh, citrusy, herbal tobacco. Not sweet pipe tobacco. Kind of more like a tobacco flower. And of course, this is a sweet, green, fresh kind of fragrance. And I think, like I said, Obsession got a bit of a boost. Because it might have been, I won't say on the decline or anything like that, by no means. But it might have been more just seen as at that point, because it had been out about 10 years by the time these really hit their stride. And I think they kind of helped it stay relevant in the mid-90s. So, yeah. And another one I could have sworn, again, I wouldn't have bet the farm on it this time, but I was pretty sure it came out in 88 or 89, and that was Boss Bottle, the original Boss Bottle. But nope, it came out, geez, I can't remember, I think it was 96 now, if I remember right. What I remember seeing 96. Geez, I was smack dab in the middle of high school, starting high school. Yeah. But I could have sworn it came out. But it was immediately popular, I'll tell you that. So it's kind of like just a fun little list, guys. Like I said, some of the bottles I don't have, I'm sorry. I mean, I have them, I own them, but they're packed. So, but I don't want to let it stop me from doing videos like it has been, because they're fun to do. I'd like to show you the bottles. I really would. I'd like to say, here they all are. But another month or two before I can get to them. So, yeah. And that's also saying, guys, these weren't, I'm not saying these weren't popular when they came out. As I stated at the beginning of the video, they just kind of reached, for me anyway, and around where I'm at, they kind of reached their zenith, their peak, if you will, in the early mid 90s. It's kind of when most of them reached their peak. And some of them are still going strong. Most of them are still going strong today. So, again, no internet. So it took a few years for us to really get stuff and find out about stuff and things like that. And as a 10-year-old boy, I wasn't going into the Sears perfume counter to look at fragrances. Not a lot were. So, yeah. So that's it, guys. Give me a few examples of fragrances, You can go back as far as you want. 70s that weren't popular till the 80s or 90s. 80s that weren't popular till the 90s or 2000s. 90s that weren't popular till the 2000s. The 2000s that really weren't popular till, you can keep it going, keep the trend going. I want to hear, because there's a lot I've forgotten about. There's a lot I don't know about. I'm not know it all by any stretch of the words. Don't never claim to be. So, and yeah, so please let me know. I'm really curious. I really like to know some that I've missed. All right, guys. Peace, love, be good to each other, and be good to yourselves.